We can make Jesus Christ, the Father's only begotten Son, through the power of the Holy Spirit who empowers us to do this. We can make Jesus Christ the Lord of our life. Or God allows us to be the Lord of our own life. In this life now, and throughout all of eternity, we have that choice to make. Will we surrender to Jesus Christ and make Jesus Christ, accept Jesus Christ as the Lord of our life and live according to the law of love, the love of God, and the love of neighbor? Or will we continue to make ourselves the Lord of our own life? And God, in His love, because if we have no choice, there can be no love. God doesn't force us. God doesn't coerce us to be in relationship with Him and to live the way He's called us to live. That's why we have so much suffering and pain and violence in the world. It's perpetrated against other people by other people because people choose to live as Lord of their own life. And in Romans chapter 1, Paul warns us, though, and God in His grace warns us that we are not qualified to be Lord of our own life. We're not qualified. He warns us that we are going to mess that up and that it's going to be painful. But we may persist and decide that this is the way we want to live. And God will say, in the final judgment, have it thine own way. And our sinfulness becomes its own punishment. Our sinfulness, being left to ourselves, there's already punishment built into that. We, in our sinfulness, end up punishing ourselves. And we've experienced that already. When we know we're supposed to live a certain way, and we butt heads against the way that we're supposed to live and try to live counter to it, if you run against, you run head first into the wall, it's going to hurt. That's the wrath of God. God says, live this way. We live opposite way. It's going to be a clash. And it's going to be painful. But we can't say we haven't been warned. God proves His love for us. And that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. How many of you have ever tried to communicate your love for someone else? What are some of the different ways, and I want you to talk back to this word, what are some of the ways, don't be afraid, what are some of the ways you've tried to communicate your love for someone else? Miranda? Hugs. What are some other ways you've tried to say I love you to someone else? Doing nice things for people. Alexandria? Kisses. Kisses. Right? What else? Kindness. Maybe you write them a note. Maybe you do wash the car for them. Do the dishes. Maybe you take them out to dinner. Sometimes just saying the words is not quite enough, is it? It's hard to communicate that, isn't it? It's not easy to communicate that to someone else. Well, for creatures who have free will, God has to communicate to us. He has to say, I love you, because I've thought and others have thought, and I know some of you have thought, why doesn't God just make it plain to us? Well, if that was the way He did it, we wouldn't have free will. There can be no free will if it's that plain. But He has communicated. Somebody said, why didn't He just, how would He communicate? Would He write a note in the sky through smoke from an airplane or something? Would that do it? We would explain that away, right? I mean, there's nothing that He can do that can't be explained away. I've got a little girl who's 5 years old today. She should be dead. She should be dead. Okay, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And if she's not dead, she should be severely mentally disabled. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. We just had another checkup this past week. I mentioned her kidneys were checked. Her kidneys were checked because She had all kinds of organ damage at birth because she was dead for close to probably 15 minutes. She was a stillborn baby. And I was as lost and in desperate need of God's grace and mercy as anybody has ever been. And not because I deserved it, and not because that I'm so wonderful and special, but God in His grace and mercy did something awesome and powerful. And that little girl was revived at the exact moment that my wife and I began to pray in the middle of this emergency operating room. And it was obvious to me that something miraculous and awesome and powerful had just happened. There was no question about it. And it was a process of deliverance that brought me out of deep, deep darkness. This is going to be long today, so Carolina doesn't play till 5, so I'll get you out of here before 5 today. But it was a process, okay? It was a process. But it was amazing at how other people, now there were people who were in the immediate vicinity and right there could not explain it away, and they were amazed. The doctor who delivered Anna and all the nurses who were in there, all they knew was a miracle. The people who were not really there, not involved, it was amazing as to how they began to try to rationalize and explain that away. And people, it's jolting once you come to the realization, oh man, there's something to this God thing. Oh, I don't know if I want to hear that because I may have to make some changes in my life. But God has said, through the cross of Christ, I love you. I love you. Could it be any clearer? What greater love can be expressed than through the giving of life? And we can scoff at the notion of sacrifice all day long. But God sacrificed His life for us to save, to reconcile us and bring us back into relationship with Him. That's certainly true, the atonement. But also to say, I love you. This proves God's love for us. And when He did that, let me get you here. He created a bridge to span the chasm that separated us from God. There was a great divide. In our rebellion, we ran from God. We caused separation when we decided to be Lord of our own life. And please don't, this is not the saint and this is not the sinner section, so don't read too much into it. He spanned this chasm, and we can think He made a way to span this chasm, this gap. God made a way through the cross of Christ for us to go from darkness to light. But we can only go through the cross of Christ. And not only has God provided us the bridge, He's provided us the vehicle that where all we've got to do is get on. And it will transport us across into the kingdom of life, into the kingdom of His Son, into the kingdom of love. And we can say, I don't like that way. There's got to be another way. There is no other way. We can try to say, well, I don't need that. I can just jump. The chasm is much too wide. You say, well, you don't know how good of a person I am. You don't know how many good things I have done. I'm not a bad person. On the scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 9.9. But the scale is not on 1 to 10. The scale is on 1 to a gazillion. So if you're at a 9.9, you ain't even close by any stretch of the imagination. You can't jump. But we confuse ourselves and think that we can jump. We don't need God. We can do it ourselves. We can make our own way. But this is the only way.